this is Kimberlea, and Yoga Snack is our bite-sized podcast where Robbie and I serve up nourishing discussions on yoga, astrology, nourishment, and mindset.
We mix wisdom with personal experiences to serve up quick, insightful conversations that nourish your practice and add flavor to your daily life.
Ready for a quick bite of wisdom? Let's dig in.
Okay, welcome back to Yoga Snack Podcast. Today we're going to talk about intentions because it's right after the new year. It seems like it's a good time. A lot of people throw the word resolution around. In yoga, we reframe that as an intention, and so it's a great time to start thinking about it, even if you're maybe not necessarily ready to set one for yourself. Maybe to start churning the wheels and thinking about what you want 2025 to look like.
Yeah.
Now,
what do you think the difference is, Robbie? What do you think the difference is between a resolution and an intention?
Oh, I feel like an intention, for some reason, I feel like it has more of a chance of sticking with you, an intention, than a resolution. But I think the main difference is an intention. I feel like it kind of puts I'm going to put action behind this. Like even the word intention, it's almost like I'm going to do this. Mm-hmm. Resolution, I don't know. I've had such bad luck or bad track record with resolutions that I don't know. I feel like I've done more intentions lately than resolutions.
Yeah. I think intentions have more of this deeper essence, and it's resolutions I always felt like were more surface and superficial. Like I'm going to lose 20 pounds, or I'm going to, exercise every day, or, and those are all, admirable things. But I feel like intentions are like, actually, how are you going to get there? So it's like, what are you going to focus on? Like, so, that I think the common one is people look at something superfluous, like their weight, and say, I want to lose. But what do you actually want? You want to be healthier maybe, or you want to have more energy, or you want to, have clarity of thought. And, and it's like, what is underwriting? Like, what is that deep, deep desire? And I think that's maybe for me, what intentions have been is like, what is actually underlying that more, superficial goal? Not that we can't have those goals, but instead of having our eye on the end result, we have our eye on that, like what you said, sort of that actionability, those little tiny things that we can do regularly. And a lot of times I think the intention is like framing our mind differently, so what's your intention this year? So really quickly, I do a word workshop every year. And so I'm always going around like, what's your word for the year? And so I mean by that is your intention. So maybe it's a word or a phrase. So, I think you know that already because you did the workshop last year, but what's your word, Robbie? Do you have one?
My word this year is assert.
What was it last year?
My word last year was leadership.
Okay.
So, just baseline, really just like sort of putting myself out there more in 2025, asserting sort of like what I want to shape my life and also like recently I've been thinking a lot about like sort of my day-to-day practices and my routines, and I think asserting that more, like really, like I had this thought the other day about like sort of making my method, like being spiritual about my method, about the way I go about doing things, my practice, my meditation, all that kind of stuff, the way I eat and feed myself. I've been really focused on that, and I think asserting that and like really pushing that to the forefront is going to facilitate. Hopefully, my thought is, facilitate more quote unquote wins in 2020.
Yeah. I saw something on Instagram. I can't remember who said it, but they were talking about instead of discipline, devotion, and to have it's kind of like what you're saying, more of that spirituality and that undertone of spirituality in the way that you're approaching things versus it being like to be disciplined and to do the thing. It's like, what if you were devoted to it? And I thought that was a really beautiful reframing. And I was like, yeah, yes, more of that, like that ability to like show up in a devotional, this deep sort of essence inside of us, and to act and to move from that place, which feels more embodied versus the discipline, right? Because I think there is a form of discipline that we need, but to reframe it around devotion, it just felt really, I don't know, it felt really good in my body when I when I read that. I was like, oh, I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love the sound of that. That's a great reframe.
Yeah, I think I experienced that in Morocco, because inside of their country and the Muslim religion, they pray 5 times a day, and they lay their mat out and they are praying in the street. They're praying, like everything has this really unshielded spirituality around it, and even in India, everything sort of has this like spirituality undertone. And I don't think we experience that here very often. So I think these other cultures that I've been in, they've always like landed really deep in my heart. And I'm just like, oh yes, that, please, more of that, more of that.
Yeah.
And to have that devotion in the way that we set up our day versus like the discipline, maybe it's, for me, that probably is a little bit more attainable at this juncture in my life. So yeah. Go ahead.
I use the pattern. You're familiar with the pattern, sort of like an astrology
Oh
app.
yeah, the astrology app.
Yeah, so that's
Mm.
one of the fun astrology apps that I like to look at, and it gives you these long-term updates, sort of like these cycles that you're in, and they usually put like a title and a description around what it is that you're supposed to be experiencing or maybe feeling a little bit of energy. And right now, for like the next like year and a half, it's like calling out a spiritual path. And I've been seeing this, and I'm like, I wouldn't describe myself as an overly spiritual person. Like I have a reverence for all the beliefs that everybody has. Who am I to say anything about what people believe or anything like that? But I'm not into a practice right now in my life, a spiritual practice. And I've sort of been like wondering, like, what is this? Like, how could this possibly show up in my life? And then just the other day, I was like, oh, being spiritual about myself, being spiritual about my health, being spiritual about my mind. Like there's more than one way to be spirit. Like you can bring that essence into just about anything I think that you do in your life. So it doesn't have to be so dogmatic about an organized thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the yoga practice is spiritual, right? Like the beginning of our physical practice. A lot of times I offer up, for people to set an intention, or I kind of bring up a collective intention, or I'm always asking people to, identify, like, why are you doing this? And that why, I think, is really important, right? It's not the how and the what, it's really that why. Like, why are you doing this? Are you here to punish yourself, or are you here to, really lovingly tend to yourself? And that's where intentions, I think they're like these seeds that then once we've planted them, our actions have to then nourish that intention so it can grow. And so we start to see the world in that way of like, okay, how am I going to move through the world if my intention, is this? And I like having it really simple, like a word or a phrase, and to have something that I'm going to utilize the whole year around, because it's a way of resetting myself, because inevitably I'm going to get off track, right? And if it's too complicated and it's too complex, our nervous system doesn't change with complexity, it changes with consistency. And so if we want new patterns in our lives and we want new ways of being in the world, I say over and over again, it's little by little, again and again. And so something tiny like a word or a phrase that you're going to say to yourself or look every day. I make bracelets for the people who do my intention workshops, and it's like it's a reset, right? And instead of it being really complicated, we can be like, oh, right. And when I give people their bracelets, it comes on a little card and it says, I chose, and they fill in their word because, and then they also fill in why they chose that word. And to really deeply understand why we're choosing this, like what we meant to do, it helps us like form ourselves again and again and again. We reform ourselves every single day around that intention. And by the end of the year, after affirming it 365 days of the year, it adds up that we end up in a new space. And I always find like around October-ish, end of October, it's like chewing gum. I've chewed on that word all year long and it starts to lose its flavor a little bit, and my mind immediately goes into opening up and seeking out, like, okay, well, this is still valid for this period of time, but like, what's next? What's it leading me towards? And I start to notice, like, I start to listen for words. I start to feel through experiences and try to figure out like what's next. So I think intentions are really, really powerful. But again, it's consistency. It's frequency over duration all the time. And that's really how we change, and I think resolutions a lot of times we like throw everything out there and we make these really complicated, unattainable goals, and then like a week in we start to feel like a loser because we can't get it all right. Yesterday I taught chair yoga, and yesterday was the 7th of January. And one of my students, she said, yeah, today is National Quit Day. And I was like, what does that mean? She's like, this is the day everybody quits on their intention. It's 1 week in. And I was like, or their resolution. I was like, oh, ooh. She's like, everybody bought the gym membership and they're a week in, and now they stop going because they don't feel like they can continue, or, and so I think it's like deciding like what is actually the underpinning of what you want, right? And maybe it's like, I don't want to be in debt anymore, I want to pay off my credit cards or something. It's like, okay, well, that's abundance. You want to channel and tap into abundance, and through that awareness and changing and framing your mind around that, it's like maybe that will help you frame that differently throughout the year, and you'll get to where you want to go. And so it's like the essence of what you want. It's not what you want. It's like the essence of it. And that's how I think I've really experienced intentions throughout the year.
Yeah, I like that. Because I'm just type of person that I get bogged down by the big picture things. Like if I look at a task, and that's sort of was my issue as an electrician, I look at the whole project and go, oh my, I don't want to do that. That's ridiculous. That's too much. But actionable, doable steps along the way, that's how anything gets done. That's like you said, the little by little. because nothing gets done in one big sweeping motion. Like, it just doesn't work that way, at least not for humans.
Right. Yeah. And then if we, you know, along the path, things are going to shift. And if we have this expectation that we're going to just do this thing and get to that place, it doesn't make room for all of the interesting and curious ways that life is going to show up this year. I'm always telling people, be very cautious, be very clear and thoughtful about this intention, because sometimes it will challenge you in ways that are unexpected. My word in 2020 was align. And man, did I figure out all the ways that I was misaligned in my life. My life blew up in 2020. I think many people's did, but I had lots of things. My yoga studio, I closed it. I stepped away from my marriage. I had a child who had a mental health crisis, and like my whole life just exploded. And it was good. Now I can say that, but it was one of the hardest points in my life. And I had to keep coming back to my word. It's like align. And when I'm in alignment, it also highlighted when I was misaligned. And then I had to choose, is this really what I meant? And I did, and so it was, it can be a really powerful way to reset your entire way of moving through your life, and just a really clear lens of like, did you mean it? So, and I kind of chose it because I'm like, wow, I'm very much, if you've taken yoga class, I love alignment, the physical practice. I love teaching alignment, not because it's the right way of doing it, but because a lot of times we bring really deep presence into the postures, and they start to kind of sing and reverberate differently with energy. And I was just like, yeah, I need to get in alignment in all areas of my life. and I'm glad I chose that word, but I look back now, and that was that's why I say be cautious, because it may show up really differently than what you anticipated. But to stay the course was what was really valuable for me in that. So yeah, and partway through I did a new moon ceremony, because we were in, everything was shut down, and I still had my studio. And partway through the year, I think it was the new moon, September of 2020 or something like that, I did an online intention setting and new moon setting, because that's also a time to set intentions, is during new moons. And I added the word allow hope, because I really needed something to carry me through that last quarter of 2020. But yeah, it was still a line.
And that's the other thing. You're allowed to. It's allowed to shift throughout the year. Like, what you think is maybe what you want to bring in at the beginning of the year, you start getting a taste of that, and it's like, okay, I need a little bit of something else here to stabilize
Yeah,
that.
to support it, right? To support it.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I usually do a vision board at the beginning of the year. You take cardboard, rectangle cardboard, and take all the magazines from the library and cut out all the pictures or
But you're allowed
words.
to.
Right.
Don't cut up ones you have to take back.
Right. Luckily, here in Longmont, Colorado, they'll give you like a whole stack if you ask for them.
I love that so much.
I think vision board with it. But yeah, that's something that I normally bring into the beginning of the year, and then I usually place it somewhere where I see it every day, hopefully multiple times a day, where I can just scan across it with my eyes and maybe get a little remembering of what I'm aiming towards this year. I haven't done one yet this year. I'm sort of taking this first part of the year and doing some cleansing, some purification in my health, sort of clear up my mind a little bit more, and just to really tune in to what exactly I want the latter half of this year to look like. It's going to be
That's
it's going
really
to be an interesting
powerful.
one.
That's powerful, because sometimes what we think we want is, it's important to spend time with it and to get clear. Like I said, I do an intention circle at the beginning of the year, because I think affirming it to other people and to being witnessed, and coming up with words, that being in community, there was a part of the circle. It's like, when you can't hold this intention, we will hold it for you until you can pick it back up again, right? And that's some of it too, and that's why I think doing it in community is really powerful. It's not like somebody's going to judge you, right? If there's a moment of things getting really heavy in your life, and it's knowing that there are other people in it with you, willing to hold it temporarily for you, like knowing that that's your intention, when there's maybe a place and a time where you're just like, F this. Like, no. And then it's just a really hard point in your life, and it's not like you've given it up, but you've allowed it to, be held by the collective energy momentarily. And I think that's really important. I don't know that we have a lot of that in our lives. I don't know, maybe that was the intention of religion, right? Initially, is to have a spiritual community. But that was sort of my contemplation this year too. I really thought my word coming into the year was going to be community. And it's still very important to me. But when I was away and I was in the ocean, the ocean speaks to me. And, I picked a different word. I picked the word float, because it was very clearly given to me from the ocean. And I play a game when I'm in the ocean, in the when I go visit my mom, and there's a stairway down from the wall that I can get down into the ocean, and I go swimming, and then when I come back, I don't quite get to the stairway. I just sort of like get near it. I position myself, and then I tell the ocean, when you're ready for me to move forward, take me. I'll trust you that when the time is right, I'll get there. And and I just sort of like flop around there for a minute, and I have to kind of wait. I still have to do a little bit of something to stay up, but I'm being held and carried, and eventually I get pushed up into that stairway to where I can hang on and I can climb up. And that was a really strong intelligence, that I'm like trusting the pulsation of life, and I'm going to trust that I can position myself, in an appropriate way with my gifts and my talents. And but once I position myself, there's just this trust that I haven't actually leaned into. I can do it when I'm in the ocean. I can lean into that pulsation, but I can't. I have a harder time on the earth, in the air, trusting that that's there for me as well. And so I did something new this year. I made an acronym out of the word float, and it's fearless, open, and trust. And so and I can feel it in my body, when I have to reset myself, because I feel my mind going 100 miles an hour and needing to get all of these details that actually probably aren't even important to spend energy on. And I get kind of bogged down and caught up with that. And it's like, I can, at least right now, I can still feel the ocean holding me, and I can kind of come back to that place of trusting the process, and really just giving my energy a little bit more to the things that matter, not all of the scattered details. So we'll see. I'm hoping that carries me into the year, and I can keep feeling for that, and trusting, that there is this process and this pulsation. And just like I can trust the ocean, to carry me, even though it's super, like it's this force, right, that I am not in charge of at all, but I can, really learn to move in that rhythm, in that pulsation, and not be afraid, and to trust that it can get me to where I'm going. And that's in the grander scheme of life too.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think that's a wonderful reminder for the year. I think that's something that we all can use some work on, like that,
yeah,
the act of surrendering, and just knowing that you're in the right place at the right time. You're always where you're supposed to be. Like the universe or whatever has got you. Like it's going to bring you where you need to be when you need to be there.
yeah. I always have this like feeling of like, um, being off the mark. Like I should have done more, or,
Mm-hmm.
my timing is off, or like there's like this magic timing that I just keep missing, and I think that's like, this constant neuroses behind my head, where it's like driving me to feel like it's never enough. And, I think we're all kind of designed with that at some level. This is just part of being human. And, I think I've gotten so much better at it, but I think we come back around to these lessons, and we have to relearn them from the person we've become. And, I'm, even though I've done this in a lot of other ways, I think it's like I'm coming back to it and realizing like, this is my work now. And for this year, last year my word was attend, and I I almost chose like the word engaged, and I was like, ooh, no, 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 no. um, I want to be really, I was like, ooh, that one could get misunderstood,
That can get,
really easily. It's like I like to be engaged in the process, and I was like, ooh. So, and I don't like the word, for me, the word focus is hard, because I have ADHD, and so I hyper focus, and that gets really intense. And, um, last year, I had a lot of really big things that were happening. My daughter was graduating high school, so my last child was, graduating high school, and, she was going to college, and, there were just a lot of really big things. And I wanted to really spend time on certain projects, like this podcast is one of them, right? And I wanted to attend to this, my body of work, and make sure that it was getting out to the public in ways that people could find me, because I kind of hide behind a paywall with some of my content, and not everybody knows unless you personally know me. And I wanted it to be, offered up to a bigger audience. And so I wanted to attend to those things as well. And so that word served me, and it also is no longer my word. And it's moved me into where I am now. And knowing what I know from all of that, it's like, oh, it's time to grow and shift this way. And it requires, a little bit more of that, like you said, surrender and trust, in that, I feel it, I find it through the ocean, like that. It is undeniable that there is something bigger than me, um, that's running the show. And what's beautiful though is like that pulsation of the ocean. um, I believe it's the same thing that's pulsing my heart and your heart, and what's breathing us. And, that we're not messing up this human experience. Like we're just doing it. Like this flavor, right? We talk about flavors. Like this expression has to be expressed. I'm not out of time, I'm not mistimed with the things that are happening. But I am waking up to that place of like, where does my energy belong? What are my efforts? How do I curate my efforts, but also maintain that sense of trust? And yeah, and it's even in yoga practice on the mat, um, floating forward, if you hop forward in transitions, and there's sort of this like lightness, but it takes skillfulness. It's this appearance of being able to like move and transition from one thing to the next, really gracefully. And I think that that's also what my feeling is too, is transitioning from one thing to the next with some elegance and grace and holding all of that. So we'll see what this year brings with floating.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we kind of have different vibes for our word this year.
Yeah.
Yours is a little bit more yin. Mine is a little
Isn't
bit
that
more
funny?
yang.
I'm over here being spicy ginger, and aren't you? Oh, you didn't put your name up.
Oh,
You're calming
oops.
chai.
Yeah.
We've kind of traded places.
Yeah, yeah. There's a little bit more ginger in the chai this year, I think.
Ah.
Spice things up a bit.
Yeah, yeah, it'll be interesting.
But it's
Yeah, we
also
don't.
asserting boundaries as well, I think. Protecting my energy, protecting, my blocks of time that I set aside for productivity, to not get sidetracked on different things,
Mhm.
and to sort of really um, just really come into more of a structure. I think is something that I lacked in 2025. I was sort of
Mhm.
just I was floating a bit. Like
Mhm.
a lot of the stuff I was doing was brand new. I'd never done before, so it was sort of like, all right, let's just feel this out. And I was getting tossed around a bit, and
Mhm.
now I'm ready to sort of kick my feet a little bit more and
Yeah.
point my direction and just do
Yeah,
it.
and I think we stop looking at what's led us here. Like we stop looking at it as like a mistake, or we did it wrong, or we could have done it better, or it's like, how is that helpful? Like we can learn and we can carry forward, but like everything that you did last year, everything I did last year, like there wasn't anything that I'm going to categorize as like a mistake, you know, but it's like moving on and shifting gears or changing directions is how life unfolds. And if we're paying attention, we should be shifting our focus, whether it's daily sometimes or annually. And I think because the beginning of the year just has that energy of newness to it, that beginnings are really important because they set the tone for what's to come. And so if we can really capture that and I think even create ritual around it, it's a really potent place to help us transform and to become the person that we really want to become. I started, let's see if I have my book with me. I started my workshop. I said, we are better than we think, not quite what we want to be. And that was by the from Nikki Giovanni, who just passed away. But we are better than we think and not quite what we want to be. And doesn't that just feel right? I was like, oh, right. Yeah, we're doing a good job and we're not quite where we want to be yet.
Give yourself a bit more credit, but also know that there's still progress to be made.
Yeah, there's work to be done, my friend, like always. And we can't do it. I mean, nobody else can do it for us, right? But we also don't have to do it alone. And that's why I think, having even the ability to articulate our attention to other people, because when I give people their bracelets, in order to like activate their word, when they put their bracelet on, they have to tell someone out loud what their word is and why they chose it. And that's really what the process then becomes, is maybe somebody sees your bracelet and says, oh, what's your bracelet say? And it's your responsibility to continue to affirm that word throughout the year and to create really meaningful conversations around it, because it could really spark into a wonderful conversation. Or maybe you needed the reminder that you were wearing a word, because even though it's on you, you might have forgotten. And so, yeah. So, I also this year, what I did, which was new, is I created a little ebook. It's a journal that goes along with people's word. And each month it's got some little prompts. And so I'll offer that up to anyone who would like the ebook to, it's just a really simple monthly reflection with some prompts. And along with that, if people want the ebook, I've also offered up a little meetup 3 times this year to just talk about our intentions and see how it's going. And so the ebook's only $10. So if you're interested in it, you can comment below on any of the platforms and I can send you a link. And we're going to meet April 4th. It'll just be on Zoom, August 4th, and then December 4th. And I'm not sure of time. So if you jump on that as an option for you, I'll send you more details once I'm done stamping the words. So it's just a way of feeling connected to other people during this, and even just, checking in and talking about it and keeping it an updated conversation in your life, because you might get to that first meeting and get the email and be like, I haven't even thought about my word. And how good it is to have that moment to realize, like, oh, I can, reconnect to this, and I can remember what my intention was. And even if it's just once a month, and you make a journal log about it. So if you guys want that, I'm happy to offer that up to anyone in the audience. And yeah, I think it'd be kind of cool to just connect throughout the year. So
that's outstanding. That's a great offering, and thank you for creating that and putting that out there. We need more avenues for staying in touch in 2025, I think.
Mm-hmm. And to use technology in a positive way.
Yeah.
Right. Instead of it being overwhelming and bogging us down and doom scrolling and, all that other stuff, but to really utilize it in a way to bring us together. That's really what I want to do. So
yeah.
Float along with me this year, you guys. And assert yourself.
Where it's appropriate.
Indeed, right? It's all about discernment. That's the path of the yogi, is discernment, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Appropriateness. So cool. Well, it'll be interesting to see how our words unfold throughout the year. And I'm glad I'm on this journey with you, Robbie.
Yes.
All right. Well, I think we will wrap up then. We'll probably start to talk about the niyamas. We did the yamas a while back and we never got to the niyamas. But I've also we've had some ideas around nourishment, food, snacks, and we hope to bring a little bit more of that to you as well. We teased you about that before the holidays, and then we got disheartened. So let's not tease anyone anymore. We'll bring you a little bit more of that nourishment piece and joy of food and and sustenance. So I guess that's it for this episode. All right. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you next time.